Hosted by Matt Riches. $1 trillion tickers. $1 trillion tickers. Watch the market unfold. $1 trillion tickers. Turning data to gold. $1 trillion tickers. Oh, watch the market unfold. $1 trillion tickers. Turning data to gold. $1 trillion tickers. Watch the market unfold. $1 trillion tickers. Turning data to gold. Peace, blessings, financial freedom. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you're tuning in from around the globe, peace, blessings, financial freedom. Peace, blessings, financial freedom. Peace, blessings, financial freedom. Welcome to the $1 Trillion Tickers broadcast. I'm your host, Matt Riches. This is the market check-in. The market is closed. Happy Wednesday. And you know what we were expecting on Wednesday? One of our $1 Trillion tickers had earnings. And that is Micron. And did they deliver? Oh yes, they delivered. MU had blowout earnings. Revenue more than quadrupled from the same time last year. DRAM and NAND revenue exploded higher. Gross margin exceeded expectations. And Micron broke through its all-time high in the aftermarket before pulling back slightly. The stock is currently up 12% in the after hours. But outside of Micron, fear remains elevated. The Fear and Greed Index is at 26. Extreme fear begins at 25. So the market is still sitting on edge, and you should be able to get some quality companies at a nice discount right now. I could think of two off the top of my head, and that's going to be Microsoft and Meta. But we'll get to that later. We're going to be breaking down MU's AI memory boom, the $1 Trillion tickers, the indices, and a whole lot more. This show is for education and entertainment purposes only. Always do your own research, but you can use this show as a foundation. Before we get on the charts, let's get into the mantra with our mindset. I deserve to be healthy. I deserve to be happy. I deserve the wealth that I am building for me and my family. Riches and freedom, they come to our hands. I am the master of all I command. My learning is limitless. My earnings are too. The more I discover, the more I can do. The stock market is a machine of design, and I have the power to make that wealth mine. I am capable, I am skilled, I am bold. Blessings on the journey as the vision unfolds. All right, now let's get on the data. MU, yes, it was a blowout earnings report. Revenue grew approximately 345% year over year. Earnings per share grew approximately 1,200% year over year. Gross margin came in around 84%, exceeding analysts' estimate of 81%. Micron's gross margins exceeded expectations. Revenue quadrupled from approximately $9.3 billion during the same period last year. DRAM revenue reached approximately $31 billion. NAND storage revenue reached approximately $9.9 billion. Both segments benefited from a memory shortage that has pushed prices significantly higher. The board also declared a quarterly dividend of 15 cents per share, payable starting next month, July 21st. CEO Sanjay Mehrotra, I probably said that wrong, said memory has become a strategic asset in the era of AI, and Micron is investing at record levels to meet growing demand. MU closed the regular session around $1,048 after hitting an intraday low of $991. the stock did close down 0.3%. Then earnings came out and MU surged around 12% in the aftermarket and broke through the previous all-time high. That strength also lifted other semiconductor trillion-dollar tickers like TSM and AVGO. And we will get on those charts. Before we do that, gold broke below $4,000 an ounce. Bitcoin hit a new low for the year. It broke underneath 60,000. It went down to $59,010 before bouncing back up to 61,000. Ethereum is at $1,616. So tonight's market is sending two very different messages. Fear and greed is only 1 point away from extreme fear. Gold and Bitcoin are breaking important lows. But IWM hit an all-time high today, and the major indices recovered substantially from their session lows. Yields declined, and Micron did a wonderful job. That's why we have to look beneath the headlines. The market is fearful, but the leadership still exists. Let's check out Robert Greene's daily law for today. This was an interesting law that I didn't quite expect from the book, but hey, we got 365 laws for our daily laws, so some of them are going to be interesting like this. Title: Diabolic Language. Today's daily law is about separating words from reality. Robert Greene explains that powerful sounding words can create emotion even when they are disconnected from concrete results. That lesson applies directly to investing. Companies can talk about transformation, innovation, disruption, and artificial intelligence, but investors still need measurable results. Tonight, Micron gave the market results: revenue growth, earnings growth, margin expansion, segment strength, a dividend, a clear outlook tied to AI demand. For long-term investors, the lesson is to demand evidence behind the narrative. For traders, the lesson is to separate the earnings headline from the price reaction. Micron's numbers were strong, but now traders must watch whether the aftermarket breakout holds, whether the previous all-time high becomes support, and whether semiconductor strength continues into tomorrow. Words create emotion, numbers create context, price reveals the final reaction, execution over emotion, process over prediction. Stay patient, stay disciplined. Now let's get on these charts, y'all. Let's start with Nvidia. Nvidia was down 0.5% on the day. Not too much movement going on with Nvidia. It's still in our smart money concept support zone. As you can see, this highlighted area here that goes all the way down to 194.77. And the top is at 201.76. Google down 0.2% on the day. It did hit a high of day of 353 and a low of day of 341 before closing at 345. Next, we got Apple, hit a high of day of 299, hit a low of day of 292 before closing at 293.08, down 0.4%. Next, we got Microsoft, hit a high of day of 378 and a low of day of 364 before closing at 365.46, down 2.2% on the day. Next, we got Amazon, hit a high of day of 242 before hitting a low of day. Well, actually, the low of day was the first candle. The low of day was 232, but then it ended up closing at 234.27. So a very volatile day for Amazon today. It was up fractionally, barely over break even, 0.07%. SpaceX hit a low of day on the first candle as well at $150. hit a high of day of 159 before closing at 154.54, down 1% on the day. Next, we had TSM hit a low of day on the first candle of 432, hit a high of day of 443 before closing at 440, up 1% on the day. And as you can see, it is up a lot here in the aftermarket thanks to MU. It is up 3%. Next, we got AVGO. Hit a high of day on the first candle of 388 before hitting a low of day at 376 and then closing at 382. As you can see, it's still up nicely in the aftermarket. It is up almost 3% thanks to MU. Next, we got Tesla. Hit a high a day early of 384. Hit a low of day of 373 before closing at 375. It was down 1.5%. And this shaded area is our smart money concept support zone. It's still in there. And we have the ticker of the day, MU Micron. So it had an interesting day. So Micron hit a high of day on the first candle. These are 15-minute candles, by the way. Hit a high day on the first candle of $1,083 before hitting a low of day at 12 o'clock. It hit $991, and then it ended up closing at $1,048. And then after that, as you can see, earnings came out, and it just started running, y'all. It did break the all-time high here in the aftermarket before selling off, but it's coming right back. Wonderful earnings for MU, y'all. All right, next we got Meta Platforms. Meta hit a high of day on the first candle, $569. It hit a low of day at 10:15 of $555.55. Wow, that's a nice number for the low of day. And then they end up closing at $557. Meta was down 0.8% on the day. Berkshire B hit a high of day, $498. It hit a low of day on the first candle of $491 before closing at $494, up 0.4%. Let's check out SPY. SPY hit a high of day of SPY hit a high of day of 739, hit a low of day of 730, and ended up closing at 733, down fractionally 0.05%. It's up nicely in the aftermarket thanks to MU. Next, we got QQQ. Hit a high of day at 8 a.m., $719. Hit a low of day at 12 p.m. of $704. Before closing at $710. Down 0.4%. And as you can see, it's up very nicely in the aftermarket thanks to MU. Next, we got IWM. IWM hit an all-time high today, y'all. At 8:15 in the morning. At least on that candle. And that new all-time high is $299.69. It did hit a low day on the first candle of the day at $294 before closing at $296, up 0.4% on the day. The VIX closed at $18.62. So the VIX sold off today 4.4%. Check out some of these other tickers. SPX SPX hit a high of day at $7,428. Hit a low of day at $7,336 before a very nice move to the upside thanks to MU. Next, we got the NAS 100. Oh, this is not correct. This should be down here. Okay, there we go. I'm like, what the heck is going on? The NAS 100 hit a high of day at 8 a.m., $29,605. Then hit a low of day at 12 p.m., $28,964. And as you can see, it ran up very nicely in the aftermarket. And it actually is higher than the high of day right now here in the aftermarket. So that's wonderful for technology, y'all. Next, we got the Dow Jones. It hit a high of day at 8:30, 52,276. Hit a low of day at 10:45, 51,762. The 10-year Treasury yield note. Oh, we filled this gap, so we can delete this gap. 10-year Treasury yield note is down almost 2%, 1.98%. It's down to 4.40. So that's good. That's definitely some relief for the market. Gold is struggling. Gold broke the low of day today. Gold broke the low of the year today. The previous low of the year was $4,023 an ounce. It actually hit $3,958 an ounce at 11 a.m. today. It's currently $4,001 an ounce. So gold is struggling tough. Bitcoin also broke the low of the year. It was previously 60,000. No, the low of the year was $59,073. And today it broke that. It went down to $59,010. So yes, Bitcoin broke 60,000 today, but it did recover. It did go up to 61,000 before falling back. Now it's $60,881. Ethereum hit a low of day of $1,550 at 10:45. It's now $1,615. All right. Let's check out the sectors right quick. Technology down 0.6%. Consumer discretionary up 1.1%. Communications down 0.6%. Energy down 1.6%. Financials down 0.3%. Healthcare up 0.7%. Consumer staples up 0.8%. Utilities up 1%. Industrials up 1.1%. Materials up 0.5%. And the real estate sector down 0.2%. All right, let's check out some news, y'all. While I read the news, I'll put this heat map on here so you can find your favorite tickers. I do got a lot of news because I haven't done a market check-in all week. So I got some news from a couple days ago as well. It's from the Master Investor. He said $1 million in 1982 is equivalent to about $3.45 million today, y'all. Damn. So you really can't even have $1 million gold. You gotta have $3.4 million gold. Well, actually, I didn't have no $1 million golds in 1982. But he said this is another reason to deploy dollars and invest and not recklessly spend. Man, oh man. All right, next. Waymo is recalling thousands of its robo-taxis to fix a software issue that could cause the autonomous vehicle to enter and drive at speeds beyond the posted limit through freeway construction zones. Oh yeah, that sounds super dangerous. Next, we got Midjourney. Y'all know Midjourney, one of the first AI text-to-image platforms. It has just announced it's creating Midjourney Medical, and it will be opening a spa in the heart of San Francisco next year. They said our spa will have hot tubs, saunas, cold plunges, and cozy rooms with pools of golden light which can softly scan your body. The Midjourney scanner, it starts by stepping onto a shallow pool of golden light, and then you begin to descend into the water. Your body passes through a ring of underwater sensors, each acting like a dolphin using its echolocation. The sensors send ultrasonic sound waves through your body from every angle. With enough waves and enough angles, we form an image of what's happening inside your body. Basically, that is pretty dope, and I can't wait till they open. I think that's pretty dope. Next, Grand Theft Auto 6, y'all. We'll be taking pre-orders tomorrow. GTA 6. We've been waiting over 10 years for this game to come out. I think it's like 12 years, really. But just some ridiculous amount of time. But, yeah. I can't wait. That's going to be dope. They need to drop a new PlayStation so we can have a new PlayStation and a new GTA game. Next, Rivian owners sue over false promises on self-driving features. Yeah, that's why you gotta invest in Tesla. Any self-driving idea, any car, just invest in Tesla. It's too far in the lead, y'all. You see these Waymo problems, you see these Rivian problems. Just invest in Tesla. Wait for a discount and buy some Tesla shares. Because just think about it. In the future, Tesla is going to merge with SpaceX. So, don't you want to be a part of that merger? Next, Microsoft shareholders sue over $357 billion stock wipeout. Somebody is trying to sue Microsoft because their stock is down heavy this year. It is down crazy, though. It is down crazy. I didn't know you could just sue them because your portfolio went down. Thought that was interesting. Amazon is in talks to sell its custom-made AI chips for use in other companies' data centers. So they're like, yeah, Nvidia, everybody not going to be able to afford those Nvidia chips, so we're going to make some chips, and we're going to make some money off these chips, too. Shout out Amazon, y'all. Next, Ryan Coogler's production company, Proximity Media, has signed a deal with Netflix to develop shows for the streaming service. Shout out Ryan Coogler, y'all. Town business right there, boy. Salute, man. I can't wait to watch the shows, man. I know they're going to be fire. Next, thought this was interesting. Orlando has approved a $6.8 million program that will deploy drones directly to 911 calls involving life-threatening situations before officers arrive, with a target response time under 3 minutes. I think that's I think that's very useful to law enforcement and ambulances and fires. If they could get some video about what's going on, I think that's very useful to saving lives. I'm pretty sure that every city would want to do that if they could afford it. And it's going to be tough on criminals if there's a drone there 3 minutes later. We'll see, though. Next, Trump Department of Justice asked judge to halt first reparations program in United States history. So the Trump DOJ intervened in a lawsuit to halt Evanston, Illinois' 2021 reparations program, the first in U.S. history, which provides up to $25,000 in housing grants to black residents harmed by the 20th century city discrimination policies. The local program, funded partly by marijuana taxes and having distributed over $7 million, targets descendants of those affected by redlining and housing ordinances from 1919 to 1969. The DOJ argues the race-specific benefits violate Equal Protection Clause as unconstitutional racial discrimination, joining a suit by the Judicial Watch challenging the initiative. Well, if we don't get equal protection, how could us getting something be discrimination? We are getting something based on discrimination. So how is us getting it discrimination? That's the dumb shit they be trying to pull. Next, Google is now one of the top 5 largest positions in Berkshire B, y'all. The tech company Google, top 5 in Berkshire's portfolio. I got a quick clip from Fox News.
A new study by Realtor.com reveals that a third of young people are still living with their parents. These are not strictly college students looking to save money on room and board. We're talking about a record 25 million people under 35, higher than at any time in history. Now, that includes more than 20% of 25 to 29-year-olds and more than 10% of 30 to 34-year-olds. These young people aren't just sitting around at home. About 70% of them are employed. But a lot of them say that they haven't left the nest because they can't afford one of their own. The median home price last year hit $430,000, up more than 34% before the pandemic. The median monthly rent has climbed nearly 18%.
That is interesting. The thing is, I respect that people, they living at home. Yes, these housing prices are ridiculous. The thing is, they said 70% of the kids, the adult kids, are working. Now, if they are thinking about finances, they will be putting that money into the stock market while they're living with their parents, because this is actually the best time to do so. When you have low rent, you have low amount of bills, and you're working, you should be putting as much as you can into the stock market to make your money work for you. Shout out to all the adult kids living with their parents that are putting money into the stock market every month. Next, we got some game from 19 Keys. He said, never stay the same. Always evolve. Constantly grow out of your old self. Challenge everyone around you to upgrade. Constantly be of service. Seek no validation outside of self. Operate on results. Stay confident and focus. Shout out 19 Keys, y'all. Next, CEO of Nvidia said that the biggest mistake people make about AI is seeing it as a threat. Use it to benefit yourself. I just added that last part on there. All right, next. Goldman Sachs cuts its U.S. recession risk forecast. It is now 15%, down from 25%. Now that the Iran peace deal is on the table and seems like it's going to be going through. The bank says lower energy prices and improving labor market support the downgrade. The new estimate is also below its pre-war 20% recession view. All right, next, Bank of America said it now expects the Fed to raise rates 3 times in 2026. B of A thinks the Fed will raise rates by 0.25% in September, October, and December, making U.S. rates in 2026 between 4.25% and 4.5%. And they expect the Fed to start cutting rates in 2028. Next, Lime, the electric bike and scooter rental firm backed by Uber Technologies, and its shareholders are seeking to raise as much as $180 million in its IPO offering, y'all. Got another IPO. Next, KGI cuts Apple to neutral. KGI Securities downgraded Apple from outperform to neutral, setting a $3.15 price target. Next, SpaceX signed a compute deal with AI startup Reflection worth $6.3 billion. Next, JP Morgan Chase unveils $50 billion buyback. Goldman Sachs raises dividend after Fed stress tests. Micron CEO said DRAM and NAND industry demand continues to significantly exceed industrial supply. We expect tight conditions to persist beyond calendar 2027, y'all. Ooh, if that's true, that thing gonna keep on running. Goldman Sachs expects the Fed not to cut in 2026, instead to cut in 2027. So you can see the disparity between Bank of America and Goldman Sachs. Next, QCOM just unveiled its first data center CPU, and Meta is the launch customer. The chip is called Dragonfly C1000. It is built specifically for agentic AI workloads and optimized for performance per watt. Meta starts production in 2028. QCOM CFO Akash Palkhiwala, there really isn't enough supply and multiple players are needed in the CPU market. Next, talked about Bitcoin already. Next, Barclays says its 2026 year-end target for the S&P 500 is 7,800 now, up from 7,650. Next, Amazon Prime Day. Household spending is down 16%. Next. Did I say this already? I think I already said that news. Oh, Nvidia did have their shareholder meeting today. One quote is, "There will be billions of agents, and they will need CPU built for them. We believe Vera will be one of the most significant product launches in our company's history, and the orders are already coming in." And you can see on this graphic, early adopters: OpenAI, Anthropic, SpaceX, Cloud. You have Nebius, Oracle Cloud, CoreWeave, Nscale, Together.ai, Lambda, Firmus. I don't know what that is. Ecosystem partners: Dell, Foxconn, Gigabyte, Petatron, MSI. I don't know all these companies. Might be a good idea to check them out. They're probably going to be having some nice movement over the next few years during this AI build out. Next, Google's YouTube settles case over social media harm to children. So YouTube is settling a Florida lawsuit alleging addictive platform design caused depression, anxiety, and sleep loss in a teen who began using social media at the age of 8. The confidential settlement resolves a claim against Google before the trial, while the case continues against Meta, Instagram, Snapchat, and ByteDance with TikTok. This development occurs amid thousands of similar U.S. lawsuits testing social media companies' responsibility for youth mental health harms following prior verdicts and multi-million-dollar payouts. Next, Amazon, who owns Zoox, that's ZOOX, unveiled the next evolution of its self-driving car, adding more rider-friendly features. Next, MU CEO talking about the robotics memory demand. He said, humanoid robots carry 10 times the amount of memory as an average L2 plus vehicle. We expect a sustained, substantial, multi-decade memory demand cycle to begin in the latter part of the decade. The mix of L2 plus and above vehicles is more than doubling this year to over 20% and is expected to exceed 40% by 2030. So these humanoid robots are going to need 10 times the amount of memory. So I think we're going to be holding that DRAM ETF for years to come. Next, Agility Robotics, a leader in humanoid tech, plans to go public with a $2.5 billion SPAC merger. It plans to expand its Digit robot, which is already in use by Amazon and Toyota. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. The $1 Trillion Tickers broadcast. This is the Market Check-In. I am your host, Matt Riches. You know how we like to end the show with some motivation.
Chase excellence, never chase money. Why? Because money has an incredible way of finding excellence. Did you chase excellence and not money? Do you have the intellectual curiosity to learn everything you can about this incredible industry and master it? Become the smartest person in the room. Have you mastered it?
It don't happen overnight, and there's gonna be moments when it's really, really frustrating. And there's going to be moments when it's really, really inspiring and empowering. And if you get too high off the highs and too low off the lows, you're going to take yourself on a ride that's very uncomfortable. I think it's just about being committed to the work and appreciating it, when it's good and not stressing too bad when it's bad. Just appreciating the work and staying focused on showing up every day.
Thank y'all for tuning in to $1 Trillion Tickers broadcast. Peace, blessings, financial freedom. Peace, blessings, financial freedom. Peace, blessings, financial freedom. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the pre-market briefing.